What do you got for number four?
So for number four, I've kind of linked a couple of things together here, and for me, it's been the importance of being in charge of my own story. Uh, there is a feeling of like profound exposure in the process that we go through with the machine, and certainly a feeling of a loss of control. And as a person, to be able to tell my own story and to be vulnerable and honest and open with my story and to be the actual voice that's telling it has been really powerful. And similarly, to have a platform here where other healthcare workers specifically can tell their stories and share what they've been through and share some things that they've learned and be vulnerable. I just think there's been so much value in hearing other people's stories, and in every guest period, but particularly in every other healthcare worker who's been on our show and talked about their own stories and what they've been through. It ultimately teaches me a lot about my own experience and about myself. And I think the goal, and going back to kind of linking or looping another episode into this discussion, would be the episode with your dad, talking about shame. And we've learned that being vulnerable and being open with our stories and telling our stories and having that discourse is a great shame breaker, as your dad would say.
Yes,
And
that is.
I've taken that term with me. I love that expression. And it's not, I don't think we have, and I hope we haven't done it in like a war story kind of way. I don't think that we have, but I think that people have been really vulnerable and honest about things that got them there in the first place, and then open and brave about telling the stories about what happened as they tried to navigate their way through the system and through the machine, without without embellishment, without hyperbole, and just being kind of forthright about things. I'm proud of that. And I think I continue to learn from hearing stories of my peers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there has been a lot learned there. And I think that people kind of have a bullshit detector a little bit with that, even if it's not something that's in their wheelhouse. You can tell when somebody comes on, and for one thing, it takes quite a bit of guts to, even if you're just out of like take Cassidy for example, just out of a monitoring agreement, to do what she did. She didn't need to embellish anything anyway.
No.
She just told the story as it was. I think, if anything, she was gracious, especially with the amount of grief her monitoring company at the end there gave her was. It was unnecessary, and it's the opposite of what you want to do when you're trying to get your way back to some assembly of stability. But she just she's been kind of such a solid character anyways, that I think she took all that and she could have taken more and still laughed at the end,
Yeah.
So it's the authenticity, right? That's the real key word there.
Yeah. And I'll share this carefully, that you and I had a fascinating experience, one of the most fascinating experiences we've been through this year, of where we weren't comfortable with a particular guest that we had, and we had decided to omit that whole episode and can it, because we weren't comfortable with the fact that the story didn't make sense to us.
Mm-hmm.
And it left more questions than answers, and it didn't feel authentic.
No.
And we didn't follow through with the episode. And that doesn't make us like tremendous guys, but I think it says, like, if you're going to bring your story forward, I think it for healing and for benefit of the listeners and of us as participants, you got to bring some vulnerability and some honesty to the table,
and some ownership. Yeah. You gotta kind of, whatever your version of what happened is, because it's going to be different. Everybody's who's involved is going to have a different set of eyes on it. But Yeah, I just I mean, we don't know. Maybe that was, maybe that was her best rendition. It just, um, I don't have any qualms about the decision. I think it was unfortunately the right thing to do. I wish it would have turned out differently there, but yeah, I think that in the long run, if we try to present a show where we're working hard to, you know, provide reality to the
Yeah.
best of our knowledge, without, as objectively as possible in an area or in an arena that's can get pretty hot, right? I mean, there's
Hmm.
man, I was so angry in the I don't know, probably the first year, just, and I was an angry guy going into it. So, you could imagine my feelings. And that can translate and it can stick with you and it can burn you. And maybe
Yeah.
that's what it was. I don't know. But yeah, it certainly was even that was a experience that I think we could learn from.
Absolutely.